What's up, you guys? Coming back at you with another Commander deck tech. This time we're going to do something different here. This is by request of my patron, Ugamon, or Ugimon, or however you pronounce that. I'm sorry if I butchered that. But anyway, you're awesome for being a patron of mine, and you have requested the Atraxa Praetor's Voice Super Friend deck tech, which I'm going to be doing for you guys. I can understand why people want to play her. She's incredibly cool. She's in green, white, blue, and black colors. You have a lot of versatility that you can choose from here. You can go with a control deck build, you can go with Super Friends, you can go with Infect, you can go with Creature +1/+1 counters, you can go with a whole bunch of cool stuff here. This video is specifically going to be Super Friends because that is what Ugumon has requested from me. This, for the most part, is an optimized deck build, with the exception of more expensive lands and artifacts. Overall, the deck is still under $1,000 at around $800. If you want to get in on this and you want to become a patron of mine, the link to my Patreon will be in the description below. I have a 20 pledge limit for this. Once a month, you are able to ask of me to do a deck tech video or a top 10 video of your choice, and I will do that for you, and it's just once a month, and the tier is $5. So I think that's pretty affordable. It's pretty cool here too, so I get to do this video for Ugumon here. So let's get on into this. Let's talk about the lands here first. We're not going to go too much into it because a lot of this is just common knowledge here. You're going to be playing your command towers and your exotic orchard stuff that come into play untapped, and they can tap for the majority of what you need. We do play all 6 of the fetch lands that you can play in these colors. This is really where the just expensive mana base is here. It's going to be our fetches. We need them specifically to get the lands we need. And we also play 6 of these shock lands, all of which are within these colors. The maximum number of these lands that we can play here, just 6, and they're very important. We can search them up with the fetch lands. It's good for mana fixing. And if there were any lands that I would say synergize perfectly with the deck, it would probably be the Vivid lands. I don't have them on the deck list because I just feel like they're too slow. They come into play tapped. But if you want to go more budget and you don't necessarily have the money to afford fetches and shocks, the Vivids would probably be the way to go. But I do have to mention Opal Palace because I think it is a pretty decent card here. You tap it, pay an extra there, and whenever you use that mana to cast your commander here, in this case it's Atraxa, you get a +1/+1 counter on her. She does proliferate and make herself bigger off of that every single end step, so very good. Then we go on to Artifact Ramp here. I think it's very important in a 4-color deck. You need a proper mana base, but you also need some good mana fixing here. So we also have all 6 of the signets that you can play within these colors. I think these are very important. Not only do they ramp you up, but they also give you 2 different colors. So you have a ton of mana to choose from, and you're most likely going to need that with a deck like this that is so dependent on getting planeswalkers out to win. Then we have awesome synergistic artifact ramp cards here in Everflowing Chalice and Astral Cornucopia, both of which can eventually tap for a ton of mana. We do proliferate and get them bigger and bigger so that we can tap them for a bunch of mana. Moving on to creature ramp, we play Birds of Paradise because it's a 4-color deck and it taps for 1 mana of any color. Pretty much an auto-include, but we also play Crystalline Crawler because it is incredible in this deck when you can proliferate, and if you have Doubling Season out, you can get it even bigger, and suddenly you're just dumping your whole hand out there because you can abuse this card, put a whole bunch of counters on it, remove a bunch of counters for mana. Very useful creature. Then we move on to our consistency cards. Aside from our lands and our artifacts, these are going to mainly deal in card draw and tutoring and things of that nature. Sensei's Divining Top, which is just about an auto-include in most commander decks. Sylvan Library, same thing for green decks. Rhystic Studies, same thing for blue decks. And Phyrexian Arena, same thing for black decks. All of these help us get through our cards a lot quicker. They help us see more cards during the game. And they're extremely underrated and undervalued, but they're so important for every deck to play them if you can. Seeing more cards is important, and these definitely help you get to your planeswalkers that you want. We also play some tutors here. We play Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor, and we also play Giroux with Eyes Open, the newest addition to this deck. There was another card called Call of the Gatewatch, which is a 3-mana white card that allows you to tutor up any planeswalker. This guy does the same thing. The only difference is he gives you a body to block with. In addition, he also protects planeswalkers to a degree, prevents 1 damage of any source that would deal to it, so it has that upside as well. Then we play Contagion Engine, Doubling Season, and Deep Glow Skate. Specifically, these are our enablers. These help us go off quicker and get to our planeswalker ults. Deep Glow probably being the nastiest of these three, just because of how sudden you can just ult your planeswalkers. It's really crazy. And Contagion Engine can be abused. You can untap it. You can proliferate again. Double proliferate triggers on top of whatever you're able to do with Atraxa. That's awesome. And Doubling Season is, of course, Doubling Season. Pretty much an auto-include in any Super Friends deck. And another thing we have to focus on here is removal, because a lot of our deck is not going to be creature based. We need a way to level the playing field if our opponents are aggro or anything like that. So we need some decent removal. We have Swords to Plowshares, Anguished Unmaking, Sylvan Reclamation, Cyclonic Rift, Supreme Verdict, and Merciless Eviction. This isn't a lot of removal for a typical deck. However, a lot of our control is what we want out of our Planeswalkers. We want our Planeswalkers to be able to deal with creature problems. We want our Planeswalkers to deal with problems, usually creature-based problems. That is what we're going to lean on a bit, is going to be our Planeswalker base here, which is what we're going to get into next. We have Liliana, the Last Hope. Very funny, mainly in here because of her ult. Once you get her ult there, you might as well just say GG's, because that's a ton of zombies you're going to be getting. Ajani Steadfast synergizes perfectly with Planeswalker decks. You get +1/+1 counters on your creatures and loyalty counters on your Planeswalkers. Elspeth Knight Errant, 2 awesome +1s. You can make Atraxa bigger, or you can make a token, or once you get to her ult, everything you have is just indestructible. So you have a great incentive there to use both of her pluses. Then we have Jace, Architect of Thought. Not necessarily the most powerful Planeswalker at face value, but when you look at his ult, it is so devastating to steal something from your opponent's decks and then play it for free. That is ridiculous. Narset Transcendent. Your opponents can't cast non-creature spells. That's just nasty. Dovinban isn't necessarily powerful, but his ult is basically Static Orb, and that is why he's on here. If you get to ult him, you pretty much win. There's nothing they can do about it, and you're just left there laughing at everybody. Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, gets you tokens, eventually gets you anthems. His ult is crazy good as well. You get to destroy 3 creatures or planeswalkers and gain control of them. Tamiyo, Field Researcher, her ult is basically Ancestral Recall and Omniscience, so once you get there, you pretty much win again. And her plus isn't too bad either. Then we have Tezzeret the Seeker. Very awesome, synergizes perfectly with the Chain Veil. You basically just sacrifice them there to the Chain Veil. You get it out there, and it does combo with another Planeswalker in this deck, which I'll get to later. But his plus isn't bad either. You get to untap 2 artifacts. Tamiyo the Moon Sage, very underrated Planeswalker. Her plus taps down a permanent, and her ult is just devastating. Any sort of spell goes to graveyard, comes back to your hand. Her minus also draws you a ton of cards as well. Liliana Vess is just a good tutor Planeswalker. That's really all you really need her for, is just searching up your better Planeswalkers, your better answers, just things that you need at that moment. And her ult isn't too bad either. Venser the Sojourner allows you to flicker a Planeswalker, have it come into play at the end step, and you do get to either reset their loyalty count, so you have that interaction there, but you also have the ability to use it on your artifacts to untap them, or use it on your lands to untap your lands. Anything like that, you need to save mana up, and you can also minus him to make Atraxa unblockable. But his ult is basically yet another win con. Whenever you cast a spell, you get to exile target permanent. Vraska the Unseen, mainly in here for her minus. It's so awesome. Destroying non-land permanents is awesome. And if you do happen to get to her ult, it is a win con. It's just not optimal. I mean, there's a lot of ways to deal with those little assassin tokens, but it is there. Fairy Temporal Archmage is sort of the glue with the Planeswalkers here. Once you get his ult off there, you're pretty much winning. And he does combo with the Chain Veil, which I mentioned before. Find a way to just constantly untap the Chain Veil, retap it. All your Planeswalkers just get to ult. And that's what the whole deck is supposed to do. It's supposed to enable you to ult your Planeswalkers a lot easier than you would normally be able to do. Then we have Sorin Markov. Kind of dickish to minus him and just set an opponent's life total to 10, but why not? You're playing a Super Friends deck where you win by ulting, and you win by having an alternative win condition anyway, so why not do this? Also, his ult is pretty nasty as well. It's a Mind Slaver, so you have 2 options here. It's a lot easier to get to his ult than you normally would be able to do so with other decks. Stormgrim Nemesis is also pretty devastating as well. His plus can deal massive amounts of damage over the course of a game if he's left alone, and his ult is just going to give you a ton of vampires. Tezzeret, Master of Metal, an unusual inclusion to the deck, but it's awesome. His plus gets you an artifact from your deck, which is never a bad thing, even if it's just a signet and you get more mana fixing and you ramp your mana there. So it's never bad. It also gives you a chance of getting something cool like a Chain Veil or a Contagion Engine, something like that. But his ult is also very devastating. You get to point your finger at an opponent and you gain control of all artifacts and creatures they control permanently. They don't get them back. So that's very devastating. Then we have Ajani Unyielding. Plus lets you dig the top 3 there. His minus is basically Swords to Plowshares, which is never a bad thing. It's good removal. And his ult just synergizes perfectly with other Planeswalkers, not unlike Ajani Steadfast. Karn Liberated is in here because he's colorless, he's extremely easy to cast, and he's perfect removal, on top of the fact that his ult is just going to win you the game on the spot there. And his plus is just annoying. Garruk Apex Predator, very good options here. You can get a creature to block for you. You can destroy creatures. You can destroy planeswalkers. He has it all there. And his ult is going to make a lot of the token creatures that you're going to be getting off of your planeswalkers much bigger once you're able to attack your opponent. And then we have Ugin the Spirit Dragon, which is, in my opinion, the best planeswalker in the format. You get great removal there. You get to deal with so many different permanents. You get to minus him there. And his plus is a lightning bolt that's going to deal with a ton of things as well. And his ult is going to give you yet another win condition in the whole deck there. And it's one of the best planeswalkers to get out there with the Chain Veil, because each time you ult him, you get more cards to put out on the field, more planeswalkers to ult. And each time you keep ulting him, you're just going to keep digging through your deck and gaining more life and putting more permanents out on the field. So he is a win con with the Chain Veil as well. His ult is just so incredible. Well, anyway, guys, that was my deck tech here for Atraxa Praetor's Voice. Let me know if this sounds like something you would want to do, requesting deck techs from me. I definitely want to be able to listen to your guys' opinions, and I want to make videos specifically for your guys' needs. So if any of you want to check out my Patreon, the link will be in the description below. But the deck is extremely powerful. You have a ton of planeswalkers to choose from, a ton of planeswalkers that you can do nasty things with. Overall, Atraxa is just a sexy commander here. And Super Friends are one of the most fun deck types that you can play in the whole format. Just because flavor purposes, I mean, it's funny. I mean, let's be honest. But anyway, guys, this is Void here signing off. You all have a wonderful day.